Welcome to TechByte series, software testing concept for beginners. Friends, in this session we are going to learn about the test execution, which is the most important another module of STLC, software testing life cycle. So in the test execution phase, the actual testing will be performed on the application. So as we know all about testing, the software testing, right? So the major part, the crucial part is testing the application. This is the test execution phase. So once the development team build the application and deploy for testing, first we perform the smoke testing. As we already discussed in our beginning sessions, the smoke testing is to make sure whether the build is ready for execution or not. It is a high level execution of each module, making sure yes, those modules and the build is ready for further testing, the deep dive testing. So once that smoke testing is completed and once we confirm yes, the build is valid, verified, and then we follow for the further functional testing. So that's called the test execution phase. So in the test execution phase, the test cases, whatever has been documented and whatever have been developed, those test cases will be executed one by one. Each step in the test case, what has been written based on the actions and based on the guidelines given in the test case. So after once we execute the test cases, right, for every step, if the step is, we know whatever the expected result is given, and after executing the action, after perform the action, whatever the result and whatever the outcome we see, that has to be captured and compared against the expected result. If both the results look good, then we pass the test case, and if both the results are differ, if the actual result does not meet the expected result, is not same as the expected result, then we fail the test step, and these results we have to update in the test cases. And as we know already how while developing the test case, we have test step, which is the action, expect result, which we already documented, and the actual result, which is kept as blank at the time of test case development, that has to be updated during the test execution phase, saying like yes, the result is same, or if we see a different result, whatever we have seen. So now during the test execution, if you find any step is failed, yes, then we have to create a defect or a bug and describing the observation. What is a defect or a bug? Bug is a flaw in the system. When we say flaw, yes, there is something, it looks an issue, and if it does not look the way what we are expecting as part of the expect result, and defect does means it is not behaving as expected by the user, and our application outcome does not meet the acceptance criteria, which is nothing but the requirement. This is where we call a bug or a defect. So after identifying the defect, we have to document the error and assign to the respective developer for the, or even assign to the lead developer for the resolution. Sometimes some organization, it all based on the project what we are working, the defect can be directly assigned to a developer, or it can be assigned to a lead developer, or it can be assigned to the business analyst. It all depends. If it is a purely technical defect, yes, we can assign that to lead developer. If it is a functional defect, sometimes we can assign to the, in some organizations we have to assign to the assign the defect to the business analyst to get the first level of review, saying yes, the business functionality has been broken, and then that will get assigned to the respective developers. So there is no hard and fast rule. It has to be assigned to only developer. It has to always assign to a team lead or a dev lead or a business analyst. It is known when we start the project. It is all how we document the roles and responsibilities and how the flow has to be done. But in a typical model, yes, it has to be assigned to lead developer or business analyst. Let's go to the test execution. And when, as we said, right, when we identify a defect, we need to describe, we have to document and assign to the developer. How a typical defect lifecycle look like. New. If you see there are solid arrows and there are curved arrows with a different color. Let's talk about the solid arrows first. New. From new, it can go to active, or it can go to rejected status. We'll discuss a little bit more in the next slide what each state is all about. We'll discuss, but let's try to understand at a high level what is the state, the flow diagram. From new, it goes to active, or it can go to rejected status, and from the rejected status, either it can be closed or it can be reopened back, and from the active status, either it can As we already said, it can go to rejected or it can go to resolved, right? And from the resolved status, either it can go to closed or it can go to reopen, and from the reopen status it can come to resolved or rejected back. And there is a deferred status. If we see the deferred status, it can come from active state or it can come from the reopen state as well. So we'll discuss each state individually and try to understand how the flow goes. New. So once we identify a issue in the software application, so tester creates the defect with a new status and provide the defect summary, what the defect is all about at a very high crispy level, and expect result, what is we are expecting out of the issue, what is the expectation, and the actual result, what actually we have seen, and steps to reproduce the issue. Document each and every step by step how we come to know that is an issue. If the developer has to reproduce, what are the steps he or she has to follow, and the severity of the issue. And then we have to attach any screenshots or video for issue evidence. Sometimes the issue may not be reproducible immediately, but sometimes the issue can be intermittent. So in that case, we have to show an evidence of screenshot or even the sometimes some data logs or the application logs, and even if any video possible. So those we have to attach to the defect so that the developer or the business analyst will review those things and understand the issue even better. And the test data, what data exactly we have used, and then assign assign it to either developer or the lead developer or business analyst, as we discussed in our previous slide. So after that one, business analyst assigns the priority for the defect. That is the new status, active. So once the lead developer or the business analyst reviews the defect, they change the status of the defect to active and assign it to the respective developer for the resolution. So that is where from new to active status goes. And then rejected. So when the defect has been logged, so this rejected can happen at two levels. One from new to directly to rejected, or even from the active to rejected. So when the defect is in new status, in the high level review, at the initial review, if business analyst or the lead developer identifies no, this is not a defect, it could be because of say wrong data, or it could be the testing is not performed the right way, then they can add their rejection comments and assign back the defect to testing team with the rejected status. Or else sometimes even after the defect is moved from new to active, when the defect is inactive, when the developer is working on the resolution of the defect, at that time if the developer understands no, this is not a valid defect, there is some data problem, or the way they tested is incorrect, or the way they understood the outcome is incorrect, they can add the rejection comments and assign back to testing team with the status as rejected. So now, what is resolved status, right? So resolved status. So after the defect has been identified for resolution, and the developer understands, okay, this is the issue, and the developer came up with a resolution, and then the defect will be fixed, and the fix has been applied, and the fix is deployed to the respective environment, either QA or whatever the environment, testing environment that testing team is working on. And once the defect is the defect fix is deployed, the status will be changed to resolved and assigned for retesting. So the defect will get reassigned back to the testing team for testing. At the same time, the developer has to provide what is the root cause of the defect, and also they have to provide the corrective actions. What is the fix they apply to resolve the issues? These things very important, because these will help the testing team to understand what exactly the fix has been given, so that this will help to identify the right regression test suite. As we spoke about regression testing in our previous slides, previous sessions, this is very important. How do we know what kind of regression suite has to be considered for testing? This all depends on the type of defects has been identified as part of the testing, and also what is the fix has been given to resolve those issues. That's the reason this is one of the key point. Developer has to provide the root cause analysis and also the corrective actions. Next is closed status. So once the defect has been retested by the tester, and the testing team identifies as everything is working as expected, the issue is not reproducible, then testing team will update the closing comments and also provides the evidence showing yes, this defect is not reproducible and the defect will get closed. And the next status is the reopen. So when the defect is fixed by the development team and assigned to testing team for the retest, during the retest, if the issue is still reproducible, if the issue is still persistent, and then the testing team will reopen the defect and assign back to development with the further evidence showing like how they are still able to reproduce. Now, before going to the defect severity and all, let's try to understand. We have shown here the deferred status. If you see the difference between all other status, how the status are moving from one state to other, we have solid arrows, but whereas going to the deferred status is curved arrows with a different color. What it means is sometimes we have logged the testing team has logged some defects, but this could be low priority or the low severity, but developers were not able to resolve the defect within the given time of the release, the project release. So that time it is a combined effort or combined decision by the business team and the test lead and even the development lead saying like, okay, this defect can be open and we can still live with the defect for the next release. There is no impact to the business. At that time, the defect status will change to deferred and move along. So it all depends. Some organizations, some project teams use the deferred status for the tracking purpose, and some teams use still in the active or reopen status saying like, okay, keep the status as it is. It all depends how the teams has been come to an understanding how they are tracking the different statuses. Now, let's try to understand the severity. What is a defect severity means? Defect severity is the impact of the issue. Okay, what is the impact of the issue? Whether this impact can be avoidable or unavoidable. Does this impact overall functionality of the application, or it is impacting only some modules? Are there any alternatives actions to mitigate this impact? So this is all will be identified during the severity and identification. These are all things will be reviewed and explored at the time of severity. So based on that one, the severity has been given to the defect by the testing team. So now you see there are 4 types of typical severities we follow. Critical. So if the issue is a showstopper for the application or it's a blocker and the testing team cannot continue with further testing of the application, then this defect severity will be critical, which has to be resolved as soon as possible by the development team. Let's see, the next severity is high. So when a major functionality is broken or it's not working, then the high severity will be given. It's not a showstopper to proceed further, but the particular functionality is completely broken, that is not working. So in that case, we give the testing team will give the severity as high. And next, medium. So it is about a particular feature or a particular functionality not working, but there is an alternative way available to perform the action. So if so in the requirements there is a particular flow has been given to perform an action, but there is an issue, the user is not able to perform the same or the outcome is not coming, but there is a way which can be used to avoid the issue, and there is an alternative approach to get the functionality and to have the functionality for the user. So then the severity will be medium. And low, the low usually given to the cosmetic issues which does not impact any functionality, or even some of the look and feel does not look good. Look and feel is not good, but the user functionality, overall functionality is working. In that case, the low severity will be assigned to a defect. Priority. So the defect priority means how soon the issue has to be resolved, how soon the functionalities should be available for the end user. So based on that one, the priority will be given. Usually priority will be given by business analyst. So usually the priority 1 means the defect has to be resolved as soon as possible. If there is a priority 2 means, okay, the other high priority defects has to be resolved first, then move to the low priority defects. So with this, we conclude the test execution phase of software testing life cycle, and then we'll go to the closure phase in the next session, and more updates or more the functionalities, more videos on the different concepts of the testing. Thank you friends. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please comment, subscribe and share the video. Thank you very much. See you soon in the next sessions. Thank you.